Red Bull's Leipzig-based Bundesliga team, Rasenballsport Leipzig, has developed a reputation over the years for unearthing and fostering footballing gems. The organisation has continued to amass wealth thanks to the sales of Deo Upamecano, Timo Werner and Naby Keita, while scrupulously improving their squad with their analytics-based approach to scouting, with the likes of Ibrahim Konate and Joshua Kimmich arriving for next to nothing. Now, the Saxony club looks set to receive their greatest transfer fee yet, as an array of top teams begin to circle over 20-year-old Joško Gvardiol. Gvardiol's ability has been apparent from a young age, growing up playing at centre-back for his hometown team, Dinamo Zagreb. The Croatian attracted interest from Europe's biggest clubs, impressing in the UEFA Youth League and making the Guardian's 2019 Next Generation list. When teammate Dani Olmo made the move from Zagreb to Leipzig in 2020, he insisted they take a closer look at Gvardiol, and Leipzig obliged, sealing a deal worth £17 million at the start of the 2021 season. Standing at 6'1" or 185 centimeters, Gvardiol doesn't tower over players, but he's physically strong and hard to beat in a foot race. His height doesn't do him any favours aerially, but he also needs to be more assertive in aerial duels, often leading with his shoulder instead of his head. But what makes Gvardiol so good? Well, to help answer that, I've created this radar chart comparing his stats to other Bundesliga centre-backs. To start with, we'll be looking at how he plays in possession. As we can see from this chunk of the chart, Gvardiol is exceptional at moving the ball up the pitch. According to Y-Scout, the Croatian completed on average 15 progressive passes and 1.81 progressive runs per 90 last season. So what does this look like in game? Well, I've pulled some match footage for us to take a closer look at. The first thing to note is that Gvardiol has exceptional on-ball composure. In Leipzig's 4-1 win away at Dortmund, the Croatian finds himself receiving the ball under intense pressure from Marco Reus. Most defenders would play a clearance at this point, but Gvardiol controls the ball and changes his body shape as if he's playing the ball out wide. Recognising this, Reus closes down the pass, allowing Gvardiol to sidestep the press and play Angelino in with a sumptuous ball over the top. Although on this occasion Gvardiol uses his dominant left foot, when watching him it becomes apparent that he is extremely skilled with either. He is by far one of the most two-footed players I've seen, and is particularly proficient at playing clipped balls over the top, drilled passes in between the lines or fizzed passes wrapped infield with either foot. The Croatian is also a fantastic ball carrier and can drive the team forwards when allowed to build up momentum. In Leipzig's Champions League victory over Manchester City, Gvardiol receives in his penalty box and realises he has his body between the ball and Mahrez, the man closing him down. Using this, he drives through the centre of the pitch, beating two more players and releasing a pass on halfway that is unfortunately blocked by his own man. He does occasionally suffer from overconfidence in possession, something which we saw in Leipzig's 3-2 loss against Bayern. Just like in the game against Dortmund, Gvardiol recognises Muller's bid to block his ball down the line and bravely attempts a Cruyff turn instead. However, Muller shifts his gravity and continues to pressure the defender, causing Gvardiol to slip and lose the ball in a dangerous area. Perhaps the most impressive thing about Gvardiol is that mistakes in possession don't define games for him. Many players might play safer after a big error, but Gvardiol doesn't let it affect his performance and is still as willing as ever to play around the opposition and take risks. However, the same can't be said of the Croatian off the ball. Very typically for a young defender, Gvardiol's decision-making can worsen after a defensive error, and he sometimes needs 15 minutes or so to recover. Now, I'm absolutely not saying that Gvardiol is a bad defender, because that's just not the case. He puts up an impressive 1.22 slide tackles and 8.93 interceptions per 90 when adjusting for possession. As indicated by his 12.5 pressures per 90, this is down to an aggressive, gung-ho play style. Take for example this tackle Gvardiol made against Real Sociedad. Recognizing the intended receiver of the pass, the Croatian actually begins to move before the ball has even been played, and times his tackle perfectly. Gvardiol is superb at defending players who like to receive the ball into their feet. He is fantastic at reading play in front of him, and with his excellent timing can challenge players before they have a chance to turn. However, Gvardiol can occasionally be excessive with his aggression. In the Man City game we looked at earlier, Gvardiol was very lucky to not give away a pen for a rash challenge on Sterling. When Mahrez goes to flick the ball back into the centre, Gvardiol panics seeing Sterling free at the front post, and recklessly jumps as if to challenge him for a header. In the end, the ball didn't even come near head height, and the Croatian bundled Sterling over for what should have been a penalty. This example highlights one of Gvardiol's greatest weaknesses defensively, a lack of patience. When the ball is in front of him, this is masked, because he has a license to run out of the defensive line when he spots an opportunity. However, when he is required to delay a challenge, he betrays his restlessness, unnecessarily moving and changing his body shape to the attacker's advantage. Gvardiol's lack of patience isn't his only flaw defensively. The Croatian also struggles with maintaining an awareness of what's going on outside of his field of vision, creating his greatest weakness, the blindside run. As the name suggests, a blindside run involves an attacking player making a move around the back of a defending player so that the defender can't see the ball and the player at the same time. To deal with these runs, you've got to be good at scanning, the action of turning your head to take in information around you. Scanning is definitely something Gvardiol can work on. A good example comes from Leipzig's 3-1 loss against Borussia Mönchengladbach. As the ball progresses through the centre of the pitch, 3 Gladbach attackers begin to make runs in behind the 3 Leipzig centre-backs. On Gvardiol's side, Stefan Leimer curls his run into the defender's blind spot. Gvardiol has seen his movement and should now be scanning in opportune moments, such as when the ball is travelling between players, so that he has a good idea where Leimer is. Instead, he decided to follow Embolo, who cleverly drags him towards the centre of the pitch to create more space in which Leimer can receive the ball. Just as Gvardiol excels at defending players who like to receive to feet, he suffers playing against attackers who run the channels. Although on this occasion Gvardiol doesn't scan at all, that's not always the case. You can't be a top-level defender without an awareness of play around you. But even when he is scanning, he often doesn't time it right, creating further problems for himself. For example, in Leipzig's away win over Atalanta in the Europa League, Gvardiol finds himself positioned with Zapata on his shoulder. He scans once and recognises that the other centre-back, Orban, is sitting deeper and drops to hold the line with him. However, when he next scans, Malinovsky is in the process of playing a pass to put Zapata in behind the defence. Gvardiol panics, initially squaring his feet as if to play Zapata off, before changing his mind and chasing after the Colombian. Gvardiol completely mistimes his scan here, and a better way of pass would have found the striker in a dangerous position. These last few examples will have probably come off as a deal breaker to anyone interested in their club signing him, but let's remember, he's 20. That's ridiculously young for a centre-back, and I expect his game intelligence to increase significantly as he matures. So just to add some perspective, I'm including an example of where Gvardiol gets one of these situations spot on. If we look once more at Leipzig's game against Man City, we find an example where City are breaking with Foden and Grealish up against Gvardiol as the last defender. To deal with this scenario, Gvardiol needs to be patient, and he has to be aware of the movement of Jack Grealish, who makes a run onto Gvardiol's shoulder. The Croatian motions to Angelino to cover the run of Grealish, scans his surroundings and waits for Foden to take a large touch, moving over to block the path of the Englishman before he can get a pass away. Gvardiol played this move perfectly, and demonstrates that he does have the potential to defend with both aggression and patience. As with a lot of youngsters, the next step will be to do this consistently. So where could Gvardiol end up this summer? Well, if he does move, it will be to a financially healthy club, with his price tag said to be up to £70 million. I also think that at the moment, he's best playing with the protection afforded by a 3 at the back. Based on this, his likeliest destinations are Chelsea and Tottenham. There have been links to other clubs, such as Inter Milan, Manchester United and Manchester City, but Inter likely won't have the funds unless they have significant outgoings, and the two Manchester teams typically line up with 4 defenders. Both London clubs use 3 centre-backs, narrowing the channels for attackers to run into. In North London, Tottenham like to play a deep block that leaves attackers little room in behind, whilst their centre-backs often carry or pass the ball out the back to generate opportunities in transition. Meanwhile, the West Londoners Chelsea like to assert control on proceedings, keeping the Croatian in possession where he excels. Wherever Gvardiol plays his football next season, fans will need to be patient. A 20-year-old centre-back with just 1 full season in a top league is bound to make mistakes. But in this era of playing out from the back, you'll struggle to find a more elegant defender.